All right, so we started with sequences, their definition, and then we went into a particular sequence that was the descending thirds, just to get our hands on how you'd use the labeling and how you'd understand a particular sequence. And then we said, now wait, that's not the only kind. There are these four main types, and we looked at the labels and the baselines for each of those. And we added the conventional term too, which was that first column on that sheet about the four main types of sequences. I'm going to go to the assignment now and give answers. So make sure that you've had some experience with this and then check yourself against what I'm about to say here. So this is sequence identification, and there are a number of excerpts there. You're going to be putting the sequence type next to whatever excerpt we're referring to. The first one's done for you, but I'll go through it just to make sure that we understand this one. This is one that happens a lot, this particular sequence, so it's a good one to know and to encounter several times. The first thing I do is I want to locate the pattern. And I think you can see where it starts to repeat. What happens here comes back there 2 measures later. So the pattern is 2 measures long. So after I've identified the pattern and located it, then I want to do my first part of the label, which is how do I get from statement to statement. This goes down a step, so I'll write that here. The second part of the label, now notice I can get that from here, but I could also get it from here, the baseline. Either one's fine. Number 2, I want to find the root motion. So let's identify roots. Inside this pattern, I'll have 2 roots. D, G, C. I just need the first 3 because I need to know how to get from here to here and then there to there. And I'll put those intervals and directions up here. I remember with descending fifths, the descending 5 is equal to ascending fourths. By convention, you pick this one, even though it's the bigger one when you're dealing with fifths. It's just convention, so we'll work with it. So D to G, I could say up a fourth, but I'll choose down a fifth instead. All right, G to C. By convention, we go one direction, and we go the other. So down 5. So literally, it's this. I get from D to G, in the baseline anyway, up a fourth. From G to C, down a fifth. But notice the way I've written it. It's all just by convention. It's all root position, so I don't have to write anything in this third spot. And by writing nothing there, I'm saying root position. All 5 3s everywhere. And the conventional label would be to take this right here and say this is a descending fifth sequence. And by not saying, see, the other option is descending fifth 6 3. By not saying the 6 3, I'm making it clear that this is descending fifths in root position. Okay, so the complete label shows up on your answer sheet. There's the complete label. Down 2, down 5, up 4, root position. All right, now we're ready for something that you don't have an answer for. This comes back here. So now the pattern is just measure long. It straddles bar lines, but it's a measure in length. We get another one over here. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to do was just identify the pattern. And this one goes on for a while, doesn't it? I can see it keeps going here a little bit. And then it breaks off. So we have 3 statements. We need at least 2. 3 is even better. That's because it establishes it. First part of our label says, how do I get from one statement to the next? Well, this starts on a B flat in the bass, goes down to a G, gets to an E flat. It's all motion by descending thirds. Second part, put it in parentheses, give the root motion. I need 2 chords in here. arpeggiating up chords. So let's see what we've got here. B, D, and F. B flat, D, F. So we've got B flat as the root. I don't really need to worry about chord qualities if I'm just after the root. So if you just want to write that, that's fine. So it's like F, yes, F, A, C. And here we have G as the root. Really from this, knowing that it goes down a third, we can tell that B flat's going to go to a G. It's going to go down a third. Okay, so let's say how we get from here to here and here to here. B flat to F. Up a fifth? No, we won't write that. We'll write down a fourth. For any sequence other than descending fifths and ascending fifths, pick the small interval. Down 4, and then F to G. Smallest way between them is up a second. Okay, now, any inversions involved here? Well, look at this spot right here. A note other than the root ends up in the bass. Here there's a match. B flat's in the bass, that's the root, they match. But every other chord is in inversion, so we'll write 6-3 there. That's the third part of our label. The shorthand for that would be just descending thirds, 6-3. But on this sheet, we want to write the complete label, so we need this. For example 18.15, down 3, up 4, down 4, up 2, and then 6-3 variant. Alternating 6-3 is fine. That's a good way to write it. It's just a little more detailed than I'm being. All right, the next one. Looks like there's some passing motion in the bass. I'm going to show you how I tend to go at it now. Yes, I can do what I did before and say, here's the pattern, and here it is again. And one more time. Let's see, and it keeps going for quite a while here. But let me break that thought off and say, you know what, I could look at this bass line and see that, well, that's a passing tone there. I can see that we're going down a third, up a step, down a third, up a step. And if I know my sequences, I can identify it right away. Let me step you through it. The first thing is it's going down. So I know it's descending. And if I know that there's only one sequence that does that pattern down there, I can write this in right away. I'll use the shorthand, and then we'll build up the other, the complete label together. I can tell that this is descending fifth 6-3 variant right away from the bass line. Here, yes. Okay, the one we're just looking at here. I'm in the descending camp. It's not stepwise all the time. It's not all leaps. It's a mix. So I need to think, is it Pachelbel? No, it's the other one that does a mixture of leaps and steps in the bass. It's this one, descending fifth 6-3. So you can work from the bass line if you've memorized it. Memorize the label for each one and go direct to the kind of sequence you're dealing with. All right, let me give you the full label now and step you through the process. Number 1, we identify the pattern. Number 2, we want to say, how do I get from statement to statement? This goes down a second. Number 2, I want to say, how does the root motion work? So let's find the roots. This is G minor. G is the root. C, E flat, G. Okay, and there's a little neighboring motion up there. That's a C as root. And then this will be F again. Again, I say because it's just down a second here. If I already know that I'm going down a second overall, then G is going to have to move to F. Okay, root motion, G to C. You've got a couple possibilities here. You can say, I'm going down a fifth to here, or if you're thinking of the C up here, I could go up a fourth. Remember what we do with descending fifths patterns? When it consistently moves like this, you say down 5, up 4, instead of the other way around. Instead of saying up 4, down 5. Just verify that. If I go from G down a fifth, I'll get to C. And then if I go up a fourth from there, I'll get to F. So that describes the root motion in the standard way. Third, we have to say if there's any inversion involved, and there is. Every other chord is a 6/3. So this is the 6/3 variant. If you want to write it out longhand, you can say alternating 6/3 variant. All right? So now we've seen this progression, the descending fifth sequence, in root position where we wrote nothing, and here we've seen it in first inversion where we do have to write something in that third slot. Okay, let's move to bronze now. The sequence starts kind of late. It starts over here. I'm gonna get this out from under there so I don't bleed through. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this, actually it kicks in here, doesn't it? There's a little bit of melodic sequencing that goes on here. So this pattern goes through here and then from here to there. I'm going to sort of round off though and take my chunk. It's starting here and going to there. So you can look at this pattern and see that this up third, up third, up third starts again here, but you're missing this one because we really melodically would have had to start way back there. And keep that big leap down to match this one. I'm going to sort of round off to the nearest bar line here. Now, I need 2 chords per pattern, and that helped me in the first place to identify where these were. This is I'm just going to identify roots real quick. Here's C, here's G, here's D as a root, and here. Okay, let's label it. We know where the pattern is, and I was using the roots to help me realize how long the pattern was, that it's a 2-measure thing. Now we're ready to label it. First thing is how we get from statement to statement. You can look at a melody note and see it goes down a second. You could look at a bass note and see that it goes down. Ooh, does that go up a second? That's going to throw everything off, isn't it? Maybe there is a problem with this thing. This does look sequential though, doesn't it? This goes down a second. That's interesting. In the tune. Wow, but this goes up. So this is actually not, that's really interesting. This is not actually a sequence as a whole. It's a melodic sequence and it's a harmonic sequence, but the two are not working together. So we really have to be very careful here to say we want a harmonic sequence. If we don't qualify that, if you just say it's a sequence, you'll think that every voice is participating, but that's not true. This upper voice, well, you know, these notes, they fit the chords and everything. It's going by a different kind of a sequencing. It's going down instead of up. So the harmonic sequence, let's label it. Number 1, the way I get from here to here is I go up to, I should put that down over here. There we go. Number 2, I want to show the root motion. You see what you need for that? C to G, and G. I can get this. Remember, you always do the big number first when you're dealing with constant fifths and fourths. Alright, so this is ascending fifths for the shorthand. Third part of the longhand, we need to say if anything's in inversion. I'm going to leave this spot blank because these are roots every time in the bass. So that's the shorthand label, up 5. What you need to write though on your spot here is that it's a harmonic sequence is also a melodic sequence, but we're labeling the harmonic sequence, and that label that needs to go here is up 2, up 5, down 4 with a blank after it. Okay, here's a sequence by Handel in his keyboard suite number 7. It's in G minor. And there's actually, if you were to go through, there's a different version of the sequence every system here. I'll start you off with the first one anyway. Let me see, pattern starts to repeat here. So the pattern is 1 measure long. I'll just go that far for our purposes and label it on that basis. He's moved it all up an octave here from where you'd expect it. You'd expect it down here, but he's running out of keyboard space, so he bumped it up. But this will be just a continuation of the same sequence. No big deal to change octaves. Okay, now let's get a full label on here. How do I get from here to here? They're going down by second. Then I want to look at the root motion. That's number 2. G minor, root of G. C minor, C. F. Okay, I just need those 3. And I'm moving down a 5th, up a 4th. G down to C is a 5th. C up to F is a 4th. Any inversion? G's in the bass, C's in the bass, F's in the bass. No, it's all root position, so you leave that blank. Remember the shorthand for this one? You don't need to write it here, but it's good to know. Yeah, take this right there. And then don't write a 6-3 after it. That's the shorthand. So on the same page here, we're seeing ascending fifths and we're seeing descending fifths. Both. And one last page. Here's the next harmony that we've already looked at, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, now here it's really obvious to see the pattern. But notice that it's a little bit different here in the left-hand part of the piano accompaniment. So I'm going to start here and say that gets replicated up here, and so on. We could box those others as well. Keep going all the way to this downbeat, or just shy of it. 4 statements in a row. All right. Now, can you see why somebody would want to call this a 5-6 sequence? Ascending 5-6. Here's the root position. F, A, C, F major in root position. And then here, the C changes to a D. Now that's just a 5th above the bass changing to a 6th. But it helps because you're about to move up 2. See how everything's up? If you compare downbeats, everything that was here is replicated here a second higher, and that'd be parallel fifths. But with this one changing to a 6th, it sort of smooths that over and helps eliminate the sense of those parallel fifths. So it breaks them up by adding a 6-3 position chord is how we'll think about it, every other chord. So let's label it in our terms. Shorthand, some people do this, I like to write this. But let's get the full label, which is what you'll need here. Number 1, we want to say how we get from here to here. We did that already, we said we have to go up 2. Then let's talk about root motion. Here's an F. If you change the C to a D, you get D, F, A. So D becomes the root. G, bass note is the root, G, B, D. Change to E, that makes E, G, B. Those are the roots. So we go F to D, that's down a 3rd. Then how do you get from D to G? In this case, don't go down a 5th, but go up a 4th because it's shorter. Alright, and then we are using inverted chords here. So for the 3rd part of your label, you'll need to write 6-3 or alternating 6-3. Now you see how you get the shorthand? You take this and write that Or if you're one of these 5-6 people, you write this, ascending 5-6. One last example. Let's see, the pattern is right here, repeated, and almost doing it again, but breaking off. So we'll box these first two. All right, that's my first step. I want to know what the thing is that I'm sequencing. And then I want to say, number one, how do I get between them? This is going down the third, no matter what part I look at. Number two, we got a great soundtrack today, don't we? It's awesome. All right, so now we've got to say, how do we get from root to root? Now, the root's in the bass, G, D, F sharp, A. Okay, so D is the root. Again, it's in the bass. So we got a root position version going on here. E. Okay, so that E is a root. That's all we need. It'll start replicating. G to D, I'll go down 4 instead of up 5 because I want the shortest distance up a step. Everything's root position, so I leave this blank. If you want the shorthand, you don't have to write it on this sheet, but just so that you know, you can write descending thirds. You're taking this part of the label and this part here. By leaving it blank, I'm saying that's descending third sequence, the root position version of it. But this is what you need to write in there. Down 3, root motion, down 4, up 2, and everything's root position. And that does it. So there, hopefully just running through all those has given you a good idea how to label all these different kinds of sequences. I hope you took the time to really listen to them and see if you can use your ear to use the bass line too, because as soon as you hear that you're going down 4 up a second, up by step, you're hearing the pocket bell bass line, and hopefully you identify that right away as this descending thirds, and then by root motion of down 4 up 2. Hopefully you hear that right off just by hearing the bass line. Remember this one? When the bass line's only moving by step upward, it's got to be the ascending second 6/3 variant. So again, you can go much faster if you take the time to memorize those bass lines. But we went through the process of giving the complete label because it doesn't matter what the sequence is. This descriptive terminology will work no matter what. You say, how do I get from statement to statement? You say how the root motion works. Say if there are any inverted chords, and you're good. And that'll work whether it's these that we've talked about, or if it's the small fraction of sequences that go and do something fresh and different, something that we're not seeing an example of here. This descriptive terminology works anywhere. These labels work for any kind of sequence.